Hello and welcome to another video by Day Night Gaming. In this video we're going to be reviewing the video game known as Monster Hunter Rise for the PC. First off, I would like to state that I am not sponsored or affiliated by Capcom in any shape or form. I have purchased this game with my own money, and this review comes from my own personal opinion about the game. Also, please take note that all the opinions in this video are subjective and from my own point of view. Monster Hunter Rise is a cooperative action RPG where you play as a hunter, where you hunt, well, monsters. It was originally released on the Nintendo Switch back on March 26, 2021, and eventually on PC in January 12th of 2022. For this video, I will specifically be reviewing the Steam version that was released for the PC. It is important to note that while I am playing on Steam, it can be played offline and is not a live service. It can also be played online with up to 3 other players for a max party size of 4 hunters, and each hunter can bring along their pet companion. So first off, I must state that it was originally designed for the Nintendo Switch and later ported over to the PC. With this in mind, its original artistic design at its core is tailored to meet the hardware specifications of the Nintendo Switch. But with its PC port, a lot of graphical improvements have been implemented, and there is a noticeable upgrade to graphical fidelity, if in case your computer can handle the processing power. With this, it is possible to achieve much higher frame rates than the original cap of 30 FPS that the Nintendo Switch version has. The character sprites look a bit smoother, shading looks a bit more clean, but overall these are very subtle changes. But even though the game overall does not look much better visually, the increased cap of frame rate can be a massive upgrade if your computer can handle it. The gameplay you see in the background was recorded on an Intel i9 9900K CPU with a 2080 graphics card. Now I must state that I personally did not play Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch, other than a few minutes here and there at my local game store, but the frame rate difference is immediately noticeable for me. Now a little bit of background about the game. Monster Hunter Rise is the 6th mainline title developed and published by Capcom. This intellectual property dates back all the way since its debut on the PlayStation 2 in 2004. Luckily, each mainline title story is completely encapsulated with its own entry, so players do not have to play each previous iteration in order to enjoy Monster Hunter Rise. In fact, Monster Hunter Rise is probably the perfect introduction to new players who are interested in trying out the Monster Hunter franchise. Monster Hunter Rise has a substantially easier beginning difficulty curve with a much more intuitive tutorial than its previous titles. This is a great boon for newcomers, as the older titles can be extremely confusing when starting the game. Basically, in the original iterations, new players were basically just thrown into the deep end and were expected to just get it, where more often than not, most players would have no idea how to play the game. Monster Hunter Rise has definitely streamlined this beginning by having a well-structured tutorial which slowly introduces new players about what to do in the game and how to play it. The early missions in Monster Hunter Rise have much easier monsters to fight, whereas older titles have massively punishing monsters that would unrelentingly dispatch new adventurers, and this could lead to a lot of new players quitting the game within their first 2 hours of gameplay. This is great, as new player retention is much greater with this new installment of the franchise. I would highly recommend Monster Hunter Rise to new players who have been slightly interested or on the fence on trying out Monster Hunter. The combat is fast-paced and action-packed. The locales are beautiful. There are a vast amount of different monsters to encounter, many different weapons to choose from, each with their own unique playstyle. They can all be simple to play at first, but there's a lot of room for growth and can quickly become complex for those who want a little bit more nuance in their fighting style. The Monster Hunter universe is absolutely amazing to play solo or with a group of buddies on the internet. And best of all, if you do not have any friends to join you on this adventure, it has a very easy system to join random hunters online. You as a player can throw up a mission and people can join right into it, and vice versa. You can even even join random hunting rooms via the guild hall system and meet new people. The multiplayer aspect of this game is amazing considering it is not a live service. Now I would like to touch upon the RPG aspect of the game. First off, there is a story, but it is pretty light, and the game mostly revolves around the action aspect, with some story elements sprinkled in here and there. But even though the story is pretty light, there is a lot of lore for players to experience if they want to delve more deeply into the world of Monster Hunter. Overall though, while I did enjoy the story for what it is, I mainly play Monster Hunter games for its engaging combat system. In Monster Hunter, as you play the game and defeat monsters, you as a player do not level up and get stronger via experience like most RPGs. Instead, you use materials gathered from defeated enemies or from gathering resources scattered about the world to then use as crafting materials and make weapons and armors. This gear that you wear is what directly impacts how powerful you are. Each large monster has its own hit zones designated around the different limbs and body sections of the monster. As you attack these hit zones, you can break parts of that monster for a chance to receive a reward from that area. As an example, you might break the horns off a monster and possibly find their horns in the reward box at the end of the mission. Or if you have a bladed weapon, maybe you can cut the tail off for a chance of finding the tail in the rewards, or even carve the tail that fell off somewhere on the ground. You can then bring those materials to the smithy in town to craft equipment that is on theme of the monster you hunted. As you complete missions, you will slowly unlock higher ranks of missions with increasingly difficult foes to fight and hopefully defeat. So in the beginning, you might be fighting a small raptor-looking monster, and then as you progress through the game, you might find a giant hulking dinosaur that shoots fire out of its mouth. As stated before, there are many different weapons to choose from. And the nice thing is, you do not have to make new characters to try out different weapon types. Maybe one day you feel like playing a gun or a bow, and the next day you might want to try out a huge katana, or possibly dual wield a pair of swords. Your one character can freely change weapons while at town or inside a tent, which in most missions can be found right at the starting zone. In fact, let's pretend that you're playing a gun and fighting a new monster for the first time. Mid-mission, if you decide that you might want to swap to a huge hulking hammer, you can run back to the tent in the starting zone and swap to that hammer. No problem. Play with what you want to play. It's pretty awesome. Now, I know up until this point I have given this game an extremely glowing review, but while I think this game is great, it is not without its fault. Most notably, if you are a longtime veteran of the Monster Hunter series, you might find Monster Hunter Rise to be a little bit too easy in the beginning. Also, there has been quite a lot of added improvements to the weapons, making the hunter extremely versatile. While these tools can be fun to play with, the gameplay dynamics of the game have evolved in a way that highly favors the hunters, making it much easier to deal with the moment-to-moment combat. With all the multitude of new gameplay systems added, defeating monsters has become much more easier than it ever has been. Hunters are now highly mobile, while also being highly defensive and highly adaptable. There are more pet companions on the battlefield than ever before, and while many monsters have become less threatening in the process. Now please bear in mind, when I say that the monsters have become less threatening, what I mainly mean is that many monsters are much more docile. It can take a while for a monster to become aggressive to a hunter that is traveling around the map. Many times when there are multiple large monsters in the same area of the map, they tend to neglect fighting the hunter and instead focus on damaging each other, making the mission that much easier. And the ability to temporarily control a large monster and ultimately bash them into each other can open up a huge window of opportunity. While at first glance this is a fun mechanic, it feels a bit too powerful in its current form. Anyway, the grievances that I have with the game are very slight and insignificant in my opinion when compared to the strength of the overall great package that Capcom has delivered in the Monster Hunter Rise game. It is an absolute amazing entry point into the world of Monster Hunter. I can easily recommend this game to new players who are interested in cooperative, third-person action RPGs. So for anyone who has been considering jumping into the Monster Hunter universe over the years, this is the iteration that you might want to check out. Thank you, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider hitting that thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button, and ringing that bell for future notifications on videos that I might be posting in the future. And in case you're interested in supporting the channel even more, I do have a merch website at streamlabs.com/DNGdangerous/merch. And until next time, take care, goodbye.